Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 2019, the Secretary of Defense discontinued certain tasks at the border after determining that service members were not performing military functions, and the continued support would negatively affect military readiness and morale. I think that is an important aspect of what is happening, the impact on morale. General Mingus and General Mahoney, how is this deployment, the current deployment, any different from 2019 when DHS was asking your units to perform the same non-DoD tasks?
Thank you, ma'am. We've been asked to defend and secure the border, and we're gonna do that. That's a priority for this administration. We're going to execute that mission as we have been asked to do. Over time, as we build, anytime you're asked to defend, it has three critical components: a physical, a technical, and a human. And as those physical and technical things come online, as our secretary testified, the human resources associated with this mission set will come down. But to answer your specific question, the lessons we learned from 2019 is the troop to task, as we like to use, was a 1-for-1. Detection and monitoring, POE support, admin support, data entry, et cetera. And so there was no time to come offline to continue to train and do their mission.
So it doesn't sound much different from what was going on in 2019.
This time we're going to make sure that the troop to task allows for rotations so that the degradation in readiness is not as substantial as what we saw in 2019.
That remains to be seen.
And Senator,
Do you have something to add?
Senator, similar but not the same. We've been on the border, as it's been stated, for a while. The mission has changed with this recent evolution, where we're primarily executing engineering tasks and engineering support tasks, think barrier emplacement, but we're also executing intelligence tasks. And in both of those, there is training value, especially for the intelligence analysts, to collect and analyze what is a very complex situation. But as General Mingus brought up, anytime you have 10 essential tasks and you're only training to 1 or 2 of them, you have to figure out a way to either accept risk in the tasks that you're not training to, or to figure out a training plan. And maybe unlike the Army, even before we had a rotational basis where we could plus up the skills in the tasks that weren't being performed, and we'll manage the same way.
There's
right now.
actually, from what you're testifying, you are needing to find some tasks that our military people are doing on the border that somehow has more relevance to what they should be doing in the military, and that perhaps if you had your druthers, your people would not be in the border at all, especially as border crossings are at an all-time low. During the NORTHCOM posture hearing, General Gillow said that units deployed to the southwest border get only 1 dedicated training days per week. General Mingus and General Mahoney and Ms. Moore, is 1 day a week normal for military training?
Depending on which cycle you're in, ma'am, it could be normal, but I'll go back to where I talked about before, is it's the ability to cycle people in and out of their tasks associated with the border mission versus going back and the ability to train on their mission essential tasks. The other thing I would offer, and this is going to expand on General Mahoney, is that at the highest level of our doctrine, the Joint Force has to be able to execute offense, defense, and stability operations simultaneously. This is a defensive operation, and so there is training value associated with that. Is it going to be the same as if they went to the National Training Center? Absolutely not. But there's still value to be had if the leadership takes the right approach to it.
And Senator, I'm not familiar with exactly what NORTHCOM said, but I would maintain that our engineers and our intel analysts have had far more than 1 day of training to train for this mission. For obstacle emplacement, for intelligence analysts, they undergo a whole battery of training to prepare them for just this support.
So you're saying that our troops on the border are actually getting equivalent, something that is equivalent to more than 1 day a week in training. So you know what, I mean, I think that you're doing your best to be very forthcoming in your assessment of your troops being deployed to the border. And clearly, you can do all you're doing your best to enable these people to be getting the kind of, some sort of equivalent training, but it is hard to, frankly, it kind of stretches the imagination to think that that is happening and that they are not losing the kind of training and opportunities to train that would be the case if they were not.
Senator,
Floyd.
from a GAO perspective, I'll just say
Yes.
real briefly that I think back to one of my previous jobs at GAO. I was on our GAO's Homeland Security and Justice team, and we obviously, that team continues to do oversight of DHS. And I think about all the capabilities that currently exist within CBP and ICE and other federal law enforcement agencies on the border. I think from an oversight perspective, it would be interesting to pursue what those agencies are doing and at what point are their capabilities insufficient to meet the mission needs on the southwest border. Now, we're not looking specifically at that topic right now, but I think that's something valuable to think about. But from a readiness perspective, one of the trends we've seen over the years is there can sometimes be a tendency to look to DoD to perform functions that can also be performed by the domestic and civilian agencies. In many cases, that's definitely warranted, but DoD comes in with a heavier footprint, it costs bigger dollars, and it does have a readiness and a mission and a resource trade-off for the department as well.
Yeah, of course, a flight using military aircraft to take only about 100 people to another country costs over $2 million. That is not a very efficient use of military resources. You raise a good point, Ms. Maurer, and up to date, we have not received information from either the Homeland Security or the DoD as to the need asserted for the troops to go to the border. We await that kind of information, but until then, highly questionable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.